Hello, BookTube. I'm back in the old book room. It got too dark and a little too chilly to be out on the couch in the other room. I'm constantly wondering, now that it's mid-June, I'm constantly wondering which of these days is going to be the last day on which those things are true for at least a couple of months. It would be nice to get at least a couple of months reprieve from always being cold. But it's definitely not true today. Today was driving rain, low clouds, and cold the whole day. But through that weather, another small mail haul came. I thought we might as well, just because I've moved into this room doesn't mean we can't make a video on it. So let's go through this. It's just 3 packages. Shouldn't take long at all, and we'll see what we have here. This first one looks a little odd. Oh, okay, great. All right, it looks a little odd because it is a little odd. Isn't that always the way? I am doing a read-along. I'm doing a couple of read-alongs, and one of them is with Brian at Bookish and Joseph Francis Burton and Janet Remembered Reads and Mark Richardson at Richardson Reads. We're all doing a sequential book-by-book read-along of the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever by Stephen Donaldson. And most of the people in the read-along are saying similar things, which is that they read these books when they were teenagers and haven't read them since. That isn't true for me, except for this first book. I didn't have a copy. The first book in the first Chronicles, there are 2 trilogies, and the first book in the first Chronicle of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever is Lourdes Filesbane, and I didn't have a copy when I agreed to the read-along because I've never really liked it all that much. To me, it seemed like the series comes into its own with the second and the third books in the first trilogy, and what the second trilogy is, I have no idea. I'm hoping to find out. I'm hoping this read-along will help me to find out. So I didn't have a copy of the first book, and my first thought was, well, the Brattle will provide. You know, there's a great used bookstore here in Boston called the Brattle Bookshop, and they have everything. They get everything. They're constantly out buying. So I figured, the Brattle will provide. I will see a copy. And then I thought, no, why don't you try the experience that everybody else in the world has to do? All the hundreds and hundreds of readers who don't have the Brattle Bookshop. So I looked it up on Amazon and ordered a copy. I ordered a mass market paperback copy of Lourdes Filesbane on Amazon, and here it is. And I have to say, this is not in that bad a shape. I wouldn't expect a mass market paperback to be in any better shape than this if I found it at the Brattle. And this was like $2 or $3, so and mighty convenient. All right, well, there you have right there a demonstration of the power of Amazon. No wonder. I mean, you can reach out from the comfort of your couch and get a book that you suddenly need for a pittance and have it delivered in a few days. And almost any book. That's kind of amazing. All right, so this is book 1 in Lourdes Filesbane. I, of course, went for the original cover artwork. There was, about 20 years after the series first came out, it was reissued with absolutely hideous cover art. So dark that you can't even see what's going on the covers. The exact opposite of the bright colors that happened originally. And then after that, about 20 years after that, it was reissued with very bland artwork, just rings, just on monocolored background. I didn't think there was any choice at all, so I got this. And now that we're coming up on our read-along of this first one, so I'll have to get to this right away. I haven't reread this in a long time. I had major issues with it. There's a prodigious amount of great imagining and world building in it. That's a real strength of even this first book. But there are elements in this book. They bothered the heck out of me when I first read it back in the 80s. Was that one? This was in the 80s? 77. Oh God, I didn't read it in 77. I got to it late. But even then, even so, the first time that I read it, there were elements of it that really bothered me. Really, those of you who have read this book will know exactly what I'm talking about. Our main character is from our world. He's from the normal, everyday world. Thomas Covenant is from this world, and he suffers from leprosy. Long story, but realistically portrayed. And he is magically transported to a fantasy land called the Land. That's your typical, pre-industrial Tolkien-esque agrarian place full of simple, kind-hearted people. And one of the first things he does there, I'm not going to spoil the book, we'll talk about this at length in July, but one of the first things he does in The Land is reprehensible. And it's not reprehensible just according to the character. It's reprehensible, the more I've thought about it in the ensuing decades, it's reprehensible according to what Stephen Donaldson might have been thinking. I'm going to have to grapple with that because I'm going to reread this with fresh eyes, but that's going to be tough. That part of it is going to be very tough. I won't spoil it, but the reprehensible thing is violent and incredibly sexist, and I'm not 100% sure. In fact, I'm almost 100% sure the opposite. I'm not 100% sure that the sexism goes anywhere, that goes away in the course of this book. I'm not 100% sure of that. Not in the course of this book. It's firmly present in the course of this book, but the next two books in this series, The Ill-Earth War and The Power That Preserves, I really like aspects of them, and I'm still thinking now, the more I think about it, that sexism, almost just outright misogyny, is just baked into the DNA of this thing. Because the more I think about those second two books, which there have large elements that I've reread many times and really enjoy, but there are other elements. Oh, all right. Well, we're going to talk all about it. But okay, so that is the first book, and it's an oldie but a goodie. It's Lourdes Filesbane. All right, and that process really worked. I mean, that process really worked. Wow, that is amazing. I mean, I encountered a need for the book. I reached out my hand, and here it is. I mean, the death knell of brick and mortar bookstores is right there. I didn't have to deal with a surly employee. I didn't have to get condescended to by a cashier at checkout because I was buying a fantasy novel. I didn't have to go to the store and find that it wasn't there, and the whole time get browbeaten to buy a membership card. Barnes & Noble, the big retail bookstore chain in America, is in the news currently because it just got bought by a hedge fund, the same hedge fund that bought Waterstones. And that is in the news. That has all sorts of opinionizing hacks wondering what this means for the future of brick and mortar bookstores, and specifically for a huge chain like Barnes & Noble, where in the case of Barnes & Noble, often the Barnes & Noble store is the only full-service bookstore within hundreds of miles. And people have been wondering for years what would happen to America's book culture if that disappeared. If Barnes & Noble went under, what would happen? And I can tell them what would happen because if you look back in history, even so far as 100 years, you see the model of what would happen if that happened, which is that bookstore culture would largely retreat to the two coasts, and that in between would be dotted here and there bookstores of worth, but that most people in pre telecommunications America, most people read the Sears catalog and the Bible, and they had their libraries. But the idea of going into a huge, well-lit bookstore, sometimes multiple floors, with every kind of book you could imagine, and that would have been a dream come true for people in, for instance, Iowa. Even at the beginning of the 20th century, that would have been a dream come true. That would have been unbelievable, just impossible. And now, well, the speculation goes two ways. Either this particular hedge fund will replicate its success with Waterstones and try its best to save Barnes & Noble, or it will do what hedge funds tend to do, which is break up a company for parts, sell it off, amass huge amounts of debt, sign huge bonuses to its management, and then junk it. And there's no way to know right at the moment which one will happen, but boy, oh boy, when I see something like this, that brings it into stark relief. Quite apart from the fact that 10 years ago the company sank $500 million into its Nook line, its line of electronic readers, without knowing if there was $500 million worth of customer interest. They sank that money in. And it's also not about the horror stories that you hear about experienced staff being fired, or the staff that remains being utterly incompetent. That you hear horror stories like that on both ends of that all the time. But quite apart from any of that, those places all throughout the middle of America, in between the two coasts, are not going to be thrown back on the Sears catalog. They have Amazon. They can just reach out and get whatever they want with incredible ease. That's the first time I've done that in quite some time. The last few times it was 10 years ago. The last few times I ordered mass market paperbacks on Amazon, they came to me unreadable, just in junky condition, just completely unreadable. And I should have known better than to worry about that too much, because Amazon has a system in place where people rate the booksellers. They rate the sellers. So if somebody is sending junk, they're not going to get away with it for too long before their rating is so low that even low prices don't save them. Wow, okay. That's a little bit eye-opening. Sorry, I don't mean to go on. Okay. Okay, great. Great. Okay, great. This comes out in July, I believe. Yes, this is a July book. This is the finished copy. I think we already saw it. It's Archeology from Space by Sarah Parzak. And it is, it's about cutting-edge technology that allows for archaeology to be done from low orbit, for the mass depressions of city outlines that have been long since overgrown with miles of forest, so that on foot you would never see it. You would never be aware of it. Even if you were walking right in it, your sense of space would not allow you to do it. Well, let me read you here. Yeah, in this book, National Geographic Explorer and 2016 TED Prize winner Sarah Parzak demystifies the extraordinary new world of space archaeology, a field that has transformed our ability to find and understand every ancient civilization that ever existed on planet Earth. It's a science that combines spy photographs with high-tech infrared satellite imagery and lasers, all to reveal ancient cities, pyramids, and temples that would otherwise be completely invisible. And that very much includes places that are invisible because they're underwater, because the shorelines have changed and whatnot. Utterly fascinating. Of course, as soon as I saw this book, I thought about Mark at Richardson Reads, and I believe there's a copy headed his way. But it's fascinating for anybody. I dipped my toe into the advanced copy, but I have not read it. So now I will. I will dig right in. Fantastic. All right, we're doing fine. We've only got one more package. I'm still rocked a little by Lourdes Filesbane, by the fact that I could just make a decision. What is today? Thursday? Make a decision on a Monday to order a book, get it on a Thursday in fine condition. That's powerful. All right, so what is this next one? Oh my! Oh goodness! Oh, all right. Wow. Okay, this is from Harvard University Press. Wow, I did not expect to get this. This is a May release, but it doesn't matter because it's a paperback reprint. This is a reprint of the annotated edition of the Memoirs of Ulysses S. Grant. We saw this on this channel when it was first coming out, and now it's here in paperback. And wow, okay. The sheet gives a list of the places where it has been reviewed, and you'll notice right in the middle is Open Letters. It's pretty good company for us to be in. Foreign Policy. I wonder though if Open Letters is blurbed on this paperback. That would be nice. If it had been, no. Okay, well the front of course goes to Ron Chernow, who has a very good immense one-volume biography of Grant. And then Foreign Policy, the New York Times, and the Library Review on the back. I really enjoyed this. I don't remember which of you it ended up with, but it ended up somewhere. I sent it away because I had the finished copy. I had somebody who would have benefited from it much more than I did, so I just sent it off. But now I have the paperback, and nobody benefits from the paperback but me. So I will reread not so much the book itself as the critical stuff, the introduction and the appendices. I read those the first time, but I very much stand to read them again. Boy, fantastic. Okay. Wow, what an interesting little mail haul. All right, so we have a paperback edition of the annotated personal memoirs of Ulysses S. Grant. Glad to have it, because I don't, and I want to. It's a worthy thing. I just don't have it. I sent the copies away that I had. Then Archeology from Space, the book introduction for most readers to this new thing, this new wave of archaeology and what the amazing things that it can do. And lastly, Lourdes Filesbane by Stephen R. Donaldson, which will be part of a read-along coming up. We have a read-along coming up. We're doing Lourdes Filesbane in July. I think that Brian and the rest have. I think we've all decided that we'll be releasing videos around the same time, in the third week of July, so around the 21st or 22nd, something like that. It's of course, it was of course a little trying for me. I would like to do a whole month of videos on the book just to give it the attention that it's due. I don't know how I'm going to be able to talk about it in one video. But I guess maybe I will summarize the plot, and then I will give you personal reactions, or I don't know. It's an age-old bugaboo on this channel. I have never quite figured out how to review a book on this channel. So I guess maybe this will be a time to figure it out. All right, so I now have a copy of Lourdes Filesbane. I will put that on the list to read tonight. I'll reread. It's been a while. I kind of know what I'm in for with the second two books in the trilogy, and I know what I'm in for with the first book in the trilogy too. And the more I think about it, well, we'll talk about it in July. Okay, well, anyway, I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, Book 2.